She gave up everything for Sheikh Hamdan. He could not do. The same, she gave up everything, not as a figure of speech, not in the way people casually say they gave everything to something when what they mean is that they tried hard and it did not work out. Actually, everything, the life she had been building before him, the relationships she had maintained with people who eventually drifted when her world shrank to the size of what loving him allowed. The ordinary future that most people assume they are moving toward. The visible one, the publicly acknowledged one, the kind where the people in your life know who you love. And that love is part of the shared story rather than a secret kept from almost everyone. She gave up the right to be known in that way, the right to have her relationship exist in the open, the right to build something that could be seen and celebrated and held up as an example of two people who found each other and decided to stay. She gave all of that up because loving him required it, because the alternative was not loving him at all, and she could not do the alternative. So she gave everything instead, and he could not do the same. That is the sentence that sits at the center of this story and does not move, no matter how many times you walk around it, looking for a different way to read it. She gave up everything. He could not because he did not love her, not because what they had was not real, not because he is a cruel man or a careless one, or someone who took what she offered without understanding its cost. He understood its cost. He has always understood the costs of the things people give him. It is one of the most consistent things about him, that specific quality of knowing what something is worth, even when he cannot find a way to honor that worth in the ways the person offering it deserves. He understood what she gave up. He could not match it. And the gap between what she gave and what he was able to give back is the painful, honest, unfixable center of everything that eventually fell apart between them. She came into his life at a point when he had already been through enough to make most people permanently cautious. The arranged marriage that was never built on feeling, the collapse of it when the truth became impossible to contain, the private life he had tried to build that was dismantled before it had finished becoming what he had hoped it could be. He was not a man who was easy to love at that point. Not because of anything wrong with his character, but because of the accumulated weight of everything that had happened to him. The way that weight makes a person careful in ways that look, from the outside, like distance. He was guarded, understandably, in the specific way of someone who has given things to the world and had the world take them back more times than generosity should have to survive. She looked at all of that and decided it did not matter, that the version of him underneath the guardedness, the poet, the man who felt things so deeply that they came out in language that strangers around the world recognized as true, was worth the difficulty of the access. She was not naive about what loving him was going to require. She had looked at the terms and she had accepted them, all of them, the invisibility, the absence of public acknowledgement, the life lived in the margins of his official story rather than at its center, the requirement to be present in ways the world would never see and absent from the record, in ways that would eventually make it seem as though she had never been there at all. She accepted every term, and then she went further than acceptance. She organized her entire life around the fact of loving him in the way that only certain people love, completely, without reservation, without the protective portion held back that most people maintain as insurance against exactly the kind of loss that she had to have known on some level was possible. What she gave up specifically is the kind of thing that only becomes fully visible in retrospect. At the time, each individual sacrifice probably felt manageable. Each thing set aside felt like a reasonable cost for what she was receiving in return. It is only when you look at the accumulated giving, at the years of it, the consistency of it, the way it added up slowly into something that had reshaped every corner of her life around a love that was never going to be allowed to stand in the light, that the full weight of it becomes clear. She had become, over the course of years, a person whose life was built entirely around someone who could not fully claim her. And she had done it willingly. And she had done it with a grace that the world never got to see because the world was never permitted to know she existed. Hamdan could not match it. The reasons are real. The position he holds, the family he was born into, the crown that has always had more authority over the shape of his life than his own preferences. These are not small things. They are the structural reality of who he is and what he carries. But structural reality and individual accountability are not the same thing. And the woman who gave up everything understood, eventually, that the explanation for why he could not do the same was real and legitimate, and still did not change the fact that she had given everything and received something that was always going to be limited by constraints she had not created and could not change. The explanation was true, and it was also insufficient, and she had to find a way to hold both of those things at once, which is one of the hardest things a person can be asked to do. His poetry, from the period when she was in his life at her most present, carries traces of the specific guilt of a man who knows the imbalance and cannot correct it. A tenderness in the writing that feels like apology, a quality of gratitude that runs underneath the surface of even the most beautiful passages, like something that cannot quite find its full expression. He knew what she was giving. He wrote around it without ever writing directly about it, the way a person writes around a light that is too bright to look at directly. He knew, and he could not match it. And the knowing without the ability to match it is its own particular kind of suffering, even for the person who is receiving more than they are giving. She left eventually, not because the love ended, but because there is a point at which a person who has given everything must finally ask, and honestly answer, whether what they are receiving is enough to justify what they have surrendered. And the honest answer, when she finally allowed herself to give it, was no. Not because he was not worth loving, but because she was worth more than a love that could only exist in the shadows. She was worth a life that could be seen. And the life he was able to offer her, real and genuine and deeply felt as it was, could never be fully seen. So she took herself back, what was left of her after the years of giving, and she started building in the direction of light. He has been writing differently since she left. The poems carry the specific weight of a man who has understood too late and too clearly what it looks like when someone gives you everything and you discover you cannot give everything back. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. Every week I bring you the real story of Sheikh Hamdan, the loves that cost the most, the truths that took the longest to arrive, and the woman who gave everything and deserved so much more than she received.